During state prohibition that began by an act of legislature in 1880, bootlegging in Pottawatomie County, Kansas was unusually successful, and to this day people will share stories about bootlegging. Many people might associate that success with indifference on the part of local lawmen, but the success was actually due to the existing infrastructure and waterways that facilitate production and distribution of alcohol. Pottawatomie County is approximately 80 miles west of Kansas City, Missouri, a wet state, and 30 miles south of Nebraska, also a wet state. In addition to its location relatively near to Missouri and Nebraska, Pottawatomie County had another characteristic. It was laced with early trails, herd routes, and waterways. Even before Kansas was a state, alcohol was in high demand. The Kansa Indians, frequenting and often traveling through present-day Pottawatomie County, were documented as having prevalently used alcohol. Despite an 1832 statute outlawing alcohol in Indian Territory, copious amounts of alcohol were transported into the area, primarily from Missouri. The American Fur Company was possibly the largest supplier, and likely used existing waterways to accomplish alcohol transport. The Kansa Indians were soon replaced by the Pottawatomie Indians on a reservation established in 1846, but the infrastructure for transporting and selling alcohol stayed intact. By 1857, a saloon was operating on the Pottawatomie Indian Reservation. Saloons continued to spread, and in September 1870, Indian agent Joel H. Morris reported that the Pottawatomie Indians were entirely under the influence of whiskey saloons of the surrounding towns and cities. The patronage of Indians, however, was not the only reason for the spread of saloons. As the Kansas Central Railroad entered into the area, it progressed slowly due to financial problems. While the railroad company waited for money, towns became end-of-the-line towns where saloons flourished. When the railroad was able to lay track, the company paid a demijohn of whiskey on top of their day's wages to entice workers. For those reasons, by the time Prohibition started in 1880, alcohol trade routes along waterways, trails, and rail lines were well established and primed for bootlegging. At first, people were able to legally obtain liquor permits, most of which were issued along already established trade routes. By December of 1890, however, arrests were being made for bootlegging. Large numbers of arrests were made, all along established trails, waterways, and rail lines. Yet the trade continued. Missouri continued to be a robust supplier of alcohol to Kansas. In 1907, Missouri distilleries had door-to-door salesmen who would take orders for alcohol. Also in 1907, the in-state producers of alcohol began to compete with the out-of-state alcohol suppliers. However, it wasn't until the 1920s that in-state production was reported on a large scale, or that stills for the production of moonshine began to be seized by local law enforcement. In the 1920s, when successful raids were conducted and moonshine stills were seized, they followed the pattern of being located along established prairie, railroad, and water routes. Despite vigorous effort by local lawmen, the use of existing, well-established infrastructure in Pottawatomie County, Kansas, ensured that the thirst for alcohol was quenched during Prohibition.